And we're back with Truth Unrestricted, the podcast that is, what are we doing? What are we doing today? We are looking at movies. We're going to look at movies today. We don't have a tagline. Screw taglines. Taglines suck. We're going to look at some movies, plural, sort of, in a roundabout way today. That's what we're doing today. So, no tagline. Switch it up. Real Charlie Brown style. Rip the football away just as you're going to kick it. But before we get into that, here today, I'm your host, Spencer, and I'm here today with my friend, Patrick, who helps me with these episodes about movies.
Hi, everyone.
He is not a movie professional. He's just a guy I know who also watches movies. We're not professionals at this. So as you can tell, I have no tagline.
It's arguable whether I'm a professional at anything.
Well, I didn't want to get into that.
Don't talk to my coworkers about my professionalism. There will definitely be some liabilities assigned.
Well, to protect the podcast, we're really not going to talk about that. Liability. Yeah, that sounds. Yeah. Okay. So, I don't know what I need for a spoiler warning. I'm going to give a spoiler warning for, like, we're going to do Star Wars, the cinematic universe, but like not Andor, minus Andor. Andor is a separate piece of Star Wars property that's completely its own thing. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. It's golden, but it's also dramatically different in theme and setting and timeline and all of the other things. It's a whole separate thing. It's just a beautiful piece of art that just happens to happen in the canon Star Wars world, but it's not included. We're not talking about Andor today at all.
I'm a little relieved. I haven't seen it.
But everything else is on. And even if you haven't seen it, generally you'll know enough, because mostly we're going to talk about the episodes 1 to 6, and because we have to do it, we have to talk about the Solo movie, but we're not like going to go exhaustively through all these. So spoiler warning for the Star Wars cinematic universe in general, and we're not going to even talk about episodes 7 to 9 because they don't matter. That's my take. Come at me, I don't care. You have seen these movies, right, Patrick? You've seen Star Wars movies?
Yes. Yeah. I have.
In your lifetime, they're a thing that you're familiar with?
Oh yeah. I'd even say I've seen the ones we're talking about in the last 5 years. But Solo, I just watched recently.
Yeah, good. Okay, yeah. Well, what did you think of Solo when you watched it?
I liked it. Good storytelling. It didn't slap me around, but it was still a good time. Yeah.
It's good. I mean, for what it was doing, it was just Han Solo as a young man.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's funny. It almost follows like all these. There was a lot of efforts to do like a young version of a hero, and we've had this reverberate through time. There was at one point there was going to be a young Indiana Jones TV series. Did you remember that? Way back in the 90s.
Yeah.
A young man named River Phoenix was going to star in it.
Right.
And he not because of this TV series, it didn't last. It just, whatever was going on with who was making it, it didn't last. But he also didn't last, sadly. He died. Mm-hmm. I can't remember. I think it might have been drugs. Very sad. Very incredibly sad. But there was a lot of this. There was also the spoof movies about this. There was like things like Young Einstein and Young Frankenstein and these sorts of things. There was a series of these movies where there was young versions of heroes, and of course we had Young Sheldon, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had very, very popular sitcom series with a guy named Sheldon that was anchoring the whole thing, and then we had a Young Sheldon that maybe now has almost as many seasons as the original. I don't know. I'm not even sure.
There was no young Doogie Howser.
Wow. Yeah, you really.
Just be a baby
That was that was
crying and
a
getting
that was a
changed.
missed opportunity, I think. That
Yeah,
was,
right.
yeah. But there's this idea that when you're searching for ideas, you're just like, oh, we have this hero. Like at some point, in some kind of room somewhere, someone tossed around the idea of doing like a young James Bond, right? Like someone
Mhm.
thought of that idea and thought, let's not do that one. That one seems bad. Like, but someone was going to do that movie in Hollywood at some point. I'm like, oh yeah, how great would that be? How much money would we make on that thing? It just another thing we could throw the James Bond name on, and just have,
Mhm.
and they're young actor doing it, so we don't have to pay some guy huge money for this. That would be awesome.
Yeah. And it always has to, have those elements where the young story of them explains how they became so cool in the future, right? Or
Yeah.
how certain
Wow.
parts of them are born into the.
Look at the big brain on you, Patrick. You've really segued into this in a way that you don't even realize. That's so good, because that's what Solo is about, right? It's
Yeah.
about explaining a lot of things. Okay, so we're gonna get into this now. So at some point in our culture, in the zeitgeist of our sort of movie watching and TV watching society, there became like a fad, and I think it definitely started before we had the internet, which for people who were doing this sort of thing before the internet, it must have been very, very difficult, right? But I think it started with, and it well, I should say it was mostly with groups of entertainment products that were spanned across multiple pieces. So, James Bond probably had some people who looked at this sort of thing and went, how do these things connect together? How does this all make sense? But the one that I think really made this idea explode and expand as a thing that people were going to do was Star Trek, right? So Star Trek started, I think it was 1962 or 63, and it had its run, and it was interesting, but people started to pick this apart. They were like looking at the ways in which everything could work. And then, of course, in our generation, we had the next generation that we watched in high school. We're not going to say exactly how old we were, but we watched that show in high school. And it was great. It was brilliant. It was some of the best TV on when I was in high school. But again, we got this new wave of people interested in this thing, and we had already started this process, and it expanded with the new generation of things like technical manuals, and people who would make up what the actual Klingon language was, right? From things that were said in the TV series. It would come up with an English to Klingon dictionary sort of thing, right? And be like, why? Why do you need this, right? And of course, if you're Gene Roddenberry, you know why you need it. You want to make that money, bro. Like, you're going to sell, in addition to these TV series, you're going to sell also books to like stack up the cash. Of course you will, right? But these things become like, they're not just additional ways for Gene Roddenberry to make money. They sort of become like additional pieces of explanation that add to the story, that help to enhance the suspension of disbelief. That you don't need suspension of disbelief anymore. That these are real in some strange way. I mean, they're fiction, but people liked, especially about Star Trek, like to believe that they could be real. Mm-hmm. In this way that we had all these, you and I, we're not going to mention him, but we had a mutual friend who was a big Star Trek guy. He had many of these technical manuals. He had like a bookshelf that was growing full of these things, right? And he
had the English to Klingon dictionary.
Yes, he had the dictionary.
Which is why absolutely. I screamed "Qapla" in the face of a stranger once. Like,
yes,
that's real behavior taking place in our world, arising from this additional fictional element.
Right. So one thing that I think about when I think about the side industry attached to Star Trek, I think of all of those extra little bits as something like a MacGuffin factory. So, you and I both know that in Star Trek, the idea of a transporter happened because it allowed the story to be told. Like, you'd go to a planet and it allowed the story of moving from the ship to the planet to happen more cheaply and more efficiently for the storytelling. It took less time. You just pressed a button and in 5 seconds you were there, and then you just pressed a button in 5 seconds more, you were back on the ship. You didn't have to climb into a shuttlecraft and fly that shuttlecraft up, and it facilitated all the things, and it was also incredibly cheap to make.
Yeah, you
as
don't
far
have to
as
shoot those scenes.
the effects go. Yeah, there's a whole interior of a shuttle you don't need, and there's a whole shuttle bay you don't need. I mean, there's all sorts of things that make the budget easier to do. And so this was a thing that was facilitated by the storytelling, caused them to make this imaginary technology. But then someone said, how does this really work? And then they had to come up with a way that it might conceivably work. Which is a really strange thing. Why couldn't you just say, oh yeah, in this magical place, they just beam people down and they beam people back up? Why does it have to have an explanation? But someone did. They came up with this stuff. And of course, all of the additional things that come with all of that get explained too, including how they maintain the ship. There's a thing called Jeffries tubes, and they climb in them. And then because someone put that in a technical manual, someone else said, oh, what we can do in Star Trek Next Generation? We can include these in one of the plots that we have for the show. A person can go into a Jeffries tube and escape the prying eye of people looking for them or whatever. And it fed back into the show in a weird way, you know what I mean? And so we had this. So people right now are probably wondering why I'm talking all about Star Trek instead of Star Wars. So I think that the idea to do this, to try to pick apart the art, to explain it in all this way, went directly from Star Trek to Star Wars, right? So in Star Trek, we have it sort of almost makes a weird kind of sense that you might want to do this, might want to have the technical manuals about how this could be, because Gene Roddenberry's vision was strictly of our future. This was a future that he thought humanity could eventually reach if we were able to give up our capitalist pursuits and stop just being money grubbing and having all this disparity in wealth, and if we really pooled our things together, we could become this utopian future in which we go into the galaxy and kill aliens, right? But exactly drawing in all the details, it sort of it almost makes it have less heart. It takes away, it shines the light away from the purpose of his vision in a way, in sort of making it look to the way to get this done wouldn't be to make a decision to stop capitalism. It would be almost like a decision to build a transporter instead, right? Like I think more people have tried to build a transporter than have tried to end capitalism in a meaningful way, right?
Yeah.
Which Gene Roddenberry would roll over in his grave and be like, you missed the entire point. You know what I mean? But this idea gets in the zeitgeist really strongly with Star Trek. And then we get Star Wars, which is oddly like Star Trek. I mean, I think George Lucas, when he makes Star Wars, he has to do something specifically that he has no choice but to do like Star Trek did them. But he has to do them specifically differently because he doesn't want to get sued by Gene Roddenberry or whoever owns the rights to the TV show or whatever, right? Paramount or whoever owned it. I don't know who, CBS or whoever. Star Trek has a warp drive. And so, but you need to get from planet to planet, right? So you're George Lucas, and you're like, well, how do you get, you're going to have multiple planets, you're going to move between them, how do you get from planet to planet? Can't call it a warp drive. Well, it's hyperspace. You know what?
Hyperspace drives.
It doesn't matter. It's hyperspace. It's a different word. It's essentially doing the same thing, whatever. It's just, you need to get from star to star. Like, it's fine. So, all right. But we see what's already happening here is that Star Wars comes out, and people have already had some time where they're building this sort of side industry on the side of Star Trek, and then they see Star Wars, and it's incredibly popular, more so than most of the other star related movies and TV shows that ever happen around that time. And people start doing this same thing that was happening with Star Trek to Star Wars. Well, how does the hyperdrive work? How does hyperspace work? How does all this thing? But of course, George Lucas, I think he didn't really care about that. For George Lucas, again, it wasn't the point, right? It was fantasy in space. I mean, he these
kind
strange
of wanted us to
right?
take it for granted the same way we saw the characters taking it for granted.
Yeah, of course they did, because how that worked wasn't the point. It was, there's a way for you to get planet to planet. All right, there's a way. Like, just accept that there's a way, and then we move on. Because what happens when we get there is the real thing you're going to want to see, right? There's a lightsaber duel. There's a bad guy all dressed in black with a mask on his face. Like, there's all kinds of other cool things going on. Those are the things you're going to want to focus on. But of course, in the way that he's making the movie, again, the same thing with Star Trek and the transporter. He has the Millennium Falcon. It has to leave Tatooine and it has to go, but he needs this moment of tension where they might not escape. There's a spacecraft chasing them. They're going to be pursued, right? There's things firing at them, and they have to shoot back, and it's a space battle, right? So he needs there's some reason why that they are delayed. They can't leave right now. They have to leave in 3 minutes from now. So we need some explanation, some MacGuffin, some explanatory thing that allows us to leave in 3 minutes, but not right now. Oh, you know what? We have to calculate the route. Okay, calculate the route, right? Okay, so that's how the hyperspace works. They're going to calculate a route, and then you hit a go, and then you're off and you're zooming through space. Okay, that's great. Well, then do you get there instantly? Well, we check the script and find out, oh, you know what? We need some time because our main hero, Luke, he needs to go on a training montage. He needs some time to learn some of the Force, and we need some character moments. Han Solo has to do a big grin as he's just, says that he, trusts his blaster more than some old religion. And we need these character moments. We need to know that Chewbacca is really good at a game that looks a lot like chess, and he's also incredibly strong and could rip people's arms off or whatever. Like, we need those moments. So
transit dialogue. Yeah.
Hyperspace can't just get you there instantly, because we would miss all these character moments, right? And, like, for the purpose of the thing, he could have just folded space and been there instantly, right? Except that he needs that time in his movie to tell this other part of the story. So, you know what? Hyperspace takes some time, an undefined amount of time. It's, more than a day, we think, at least a day. I mean, I don't know how long Luke was in training for. I mean, he didn't have any training before he got on the Millennium Falcon. He got there and he had some training done, so he must have done some, so I don't know, a couple days maybe. I don't know.
Sure.
Hard to say if it was as much as a week. If there was a week on that little ship, they probably would have, been a lot more angry at each other. I don't know. But, well, like, he doesn't specify, and I think that's on purpose, because the exact amount of time isn't what's important to him. Having all the details filled in and exactly lined out with an equation of hyperspace goes this fast, and this is why the stars seem to be zooming past as quickly or whatever. Like, those bits aren't important to George Lucas. I can guarantee it, right? But that's the reason why hyperspace works the way it does, because it needed to fit the story that way. in the same way that was why the transporter worked that way in Star Trek, because it needed to work that way for the budget of the show and to make everything fit in the time frame he had. So, and this is what science fiction is supposed to do. It's supposed to arrange the technology to facilitate the story being told. It's not really supposed to be a thing where you like, we could maybe invent this thing or whatever, right? Like it's not really meant to be an exact model and prediction of the future based on the physics that we know. Often they try to not do something that's physically fully impossible, whatever that looks like, right? But, you know, aside from that, anything goes, right? Like, you know, you want to have a story about how alien bug creatures are coming to the Earth, and fine, you do that, you know. So I'll stop here. I've been talking for a long time. How am I so far? Am I coming across? Am I making sense, or am I just babbling? What am I doing here, Patrick?
Well, I mean, I think what's coming through pretty clearly is the structure of the storytelling, you know, and how these things are accomplished. I mean, for me, looking back at Star Wars versus Star Trek is kind of looking back at my own geeky history and comparing like arcade games to computer games, right? Like one had a more, you know, like required a greater degree of investigation, or at least rewarded a greater degree of investigation. Like the computer games were usually more sophisticated. Arcade games were a more limited interface, right? And so I've always kind of looked at like, it's hard, right? Because like my baseline for Star Trek is entering at Next Generation. I didn't watch the previous anything before Next Generation until after Next Generation. So for me, Next Generation was quite cerebral compared to anything Star Trek had shown us. And so, and a lot of, you know, moral lessons and things like that embedded, and also began to develop, you know, continuity. But it's interesting to look at them. I'm curious where we go in this discussion to discuss, you know, like.
Good. Well, I've had a moment to collect myself and regenerate my oxygen level after all the talking, and I am ready to go. Thank you for vamping on that for that amount of time. So we see how we get here, right? Where we built these technologies based on how they would fit the story that we needed to tell. But of course, the dialogue, many people have pointed out that the dialogue, especially in episode 4, the very first movie that was ever made of all these movies, had some gaps. It had a couple moments that were like, some people say, well, you know, this could have worked a lot better or whatever. And I think we should just move past those, because those aren't the things that we're really there for. Like George Lucas had to do most of this on his own. He did all the dialogue himself, and he had to try to direct the movie. And I think he might've produced that one too. I don't know. Like he was doing most of the things, wearing a lot of hats. And there was a couple.
What are the gaps? Like, are these like inconsistencies in the video or the story? Or?
In the dialogue. So, there's one particular line that I'm going to mention next. Okay. It's a famous line that was said in the Millennium Falcon by Han Solo, just as they're taking off and getting ready to leave Tatooine. I think that Luke says, we can't go in this ship, it's a hunk of junk. And Han Solo says, hey, this is the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. So the Kessel Run, we don't know what that is. No one knows what that is. It's just it's a thing that Han Solo thinks other people should know, right? So it's a run. It's a run. We think
some sort of travel with a start and a destination,
route, maybe, or whatever. But a parsec is not a unit of time. Like we think of moving through a route as like, you ran a marathon in a certain amount of time or whatever. You made the route from, you drove from New York to LA in a, certain number of days or whatever it took, you know what I mean? Like you did it in some length of time, and this made it an impressive feat to have done.
That's our most common reference for it.
Yeah. But a parsec is not a unit of time. Yeah. It's a unit of distance. So it didn't, like this is a thing that has been noted. I didn't find any footage of him mentioning this, but this is a thing has been noted by many people for decades, is that, parsec's not a unit of time. But of course, in the Solo movie, we have, this is no longer George Lucas in charge, but we have Disney working this into the plot of the Solo movie. Is the Kessel Run occurs, and it happens in less than 12 parsecs. And they have some arcane explanation as to how this goes. And they plan a different route through these insane, moving black holes and whatnot that, okay. All right. But what we just did when we did that was retroactive continuity, right? And that's what I'm really getting at here, is that in addition to this sort of MacGuffin factory thing that happens where you get all the like Star Trek manuals and whatnot, you also get this sort of freeform, crowdsourced retroactive continuity force. I don't want to call it a factory because it's not organized and they're not like producing anything on a timeline or whatever. It's just fans of these things that love these things so much that they want to protect them and they don't want them to be flawed in any way. So they try to explain away all these little inconsistencies. So like this one phrase, this Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, had many varying explanations from many fans based on all kinds of speculation that included all manner of, potential, well, what if it was from this, or what if it had this thing or whatever. And
I was one of those people.
Yeah. Right? What was your explanation when you...
Well, it wasn't an explanation. It was just kind of like a question, like maybe our measure of performance isn't what they were measuring the performance, right? Like for me, I thought about, well, there's going to be certain space dangers. So how close can you come to black holes, or how risky do you make the run by adjusting? So I thought, it's like if you were going to trace your path on a map with a string, but you're taking a bunch of weaves, you're using more string. And if you could make that string shorter and still get to your destination, that could be like a measure of performance. That's kind of how I envisioned it was possible anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think probably more likely that whoever included it was like, oh, fuck, this is a spacey term. I'm gonna throw this in here, right? Like, I think that's how it started, but still at the end, it just, for me, it led me to question, like, is it within any realm of possibility? And I kind of thought it was.
It's what's far more likely, and actually, really likely, is that you had a young filmmaker who hadn't made many films yet. He was swinging for the fences with this one, this space opera. Yeah. And he's doing many, many things. And he's actually like rewriting many parts as he's going. Like there's stories about how they made this, and everyone was like, this is crazy. No one knows what this is going to look like, this movie. And they're like, you know what? We need some space jargon here, techno jargon here. And he just throws something out and says, that's good. Run with that. Yeah. And then
there's no other attempt in the movie series to be technical. So why would this be the one time that they got incredibly hyper technical in a way that they'd never, ever, nobody on earth would understand?
Yeah, because it just needs to be something. It's like when you throw technical jargon like this out in this way, it's meant to be something we don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, and Harrison Ford pulls off this line perfectly because we like, when I listen to it anyway, I get what he's going for. He's like, screw you, my ship is good. That's what he's really saying.
Yeah.
But he doesn't say those words. He says, this is the ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
Yeah.
It's meant to be impressive. Yes, it did this impressive thing however long ago or whatever it was. This ship is good, trust me, bro,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he says it the right way so that we get that. Like, there's a way that you could deliver that line. Some other actor might have got the role, deliver that line wrong, and we wouldn't understand that this is meant to be, screw you, my ship actually is good. It would have felt like something else. But because Harrison Ford is who he is, we understood what he meant.
I wonder if, like, when those movies were first airing, there was like some astrophysicist in the theater, and that line's on the screen. He's like, "What?" Throws his popcorn in there. This is nonsense, and everyone's like, "I think that's
Take
kind
it easy, bro.
That's the test of the gap too, right? Like, is how much does it alienate the audience from the story?"
Yeah, like I say, this sort of techno jargon, there's all kinds of other little bits of it in this sort of scene where they're, talking about or not just the scene, but this movie, they're talking about the droids. There's a bad motivator or whatever. Like, what's a motivator? Is it a motor? It's a motivator. It causes something else to go.
There's
like
a little tiny robot inside going, "You can do it."
Yeah. So it's just a word that they have for some piece of machinery that helps the droid do what a droid does, and it's not meant to be a thing that you could draw a technical diagram of. It's just meant to be part of the magic of the universe, in which droids actually are creatures that are almost like real thinking creatures. Maybe even are real thinking creatures. We don't really know. But that's the point of it. It's supposed to be something you don't know, rather than something that you can listen to and pick apart and know. So even doing the exercise of picking it apart to know how it works and how it fits with the physics of how you'd move across the galaxy or whatever, also sort of drains the art of its point and its purpose. It's supposed to feel magical. It's not supposed to feel technical. Technical usually brings things into full knowledge, like a schematic. But there's nothing magical about a schematic unless you don't understand anything that's there.
Right.
Yeah. So this whole process of doing all this retroactive continuity on all of these things, that sort of rips away at the art, but it also does another thing. And this is sort of the bigger point I'm working towards here. Okay. In my longish way, is that in doing this, I could have just done this with Star Trek, but I think it's more telling when this happens with Star Wars, because it happens a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's not meant to be our future. It's not meant to be a thing we are doing or whatever. It includes humans in the world just because we have humans acting on set, and it costs less than to have a race of mouse beings or whatever that the humans dress up as, like a Planet of the Apes style or something, that are that race that takes the place of humans, right? It's just we identify more with them when they look like us because we're selfish social creatures. But so in that way, it also doesn't make sense that there'd be humans in another galaxy far, far away. That also, by everything we know about science, that wouldn't make any sense. But that's the thing we're supposed to put aside. That's the suspension of disbelief we're supposed to put into this, to say, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just about telling this magical tale of, the Force and overcoming, light overcoming darkness. And that's the real point.
Yeah, we accept it.
yeah, just get over yourself already. It doesn't matter that humans would have evolved and changed in some form between then and now if this was blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But in engaging in this way, and again, no one intended for this to be, but it is a thing that happened. We have been slowly building up our ability to retroactively reinterpret previously seen things in order to make them not just make more sense, but to make them a thing that isn't a thing that makes less sense, if that makes sense. So it's because we have moments like this where Han Solo threw out a line that appears to not make any sense, we almost feel that in order for the movie that we love to not have this sort of like weird hole that we have to step over every time we watch it, it'd almost be great if this just had a full explanation of why he said this. And so that's why the retroactive continuity happens. That's why it gets thrown into the Solo movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that we have this no longer this weird gaping sort of pothole that we drive around whenever we rewatch episode 4. We just go, oh no, that piece right there, I get that now. That's perfect. I don't have to disassociate when we get to that part that where it appears to not make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
It makes perfect sense now, and I'm good. But we're not just doing it with that moment. We're doing it with many, 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 many moments in the Star Wars universe. Many more of those in the Star Wars universe than we are in the Star Trek universe, actually. Because the first 3 that were made were done in this way that wasn't meant to be hyper-examined in this way. It was never a thing where they were ever going to really make, technical manuals. I think there is even probably technical manuals of things like the ships and whatnot, the Millennium Falcon and other ships, right? I think there might even be some of those. I didn't look it up. I know that there are role-playing games that include, stats for these ships. But yeah, like these aren't real ships. It doesn't really matter if the size of a human compared to the Millennium Falcon doesn't justify it having as much space as it appears to have once the characters are inside it.
Well, it might matter to some people. I mean, if they care,
Well, I guess, but so few things happen on the inside of it that,
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. But I mean, that's I don't know if this is where it started, but somewhere in our culture emerges the nitpickers, right?
Yeah.
Before the nitpickers was just blanket wide-eyed acceptance. So what I see must make sense because it's on the screen and I can't make that screen. But then somewhere along the way, we started to see inconsistencies, which developed a breed of, detail sleuths who go around examining that. And so like when Star Wars was first running in the theater, again, like everybody just, popcorn through it, right? But after you've seen it 5 times, people start to, lock on, and then there's the discussions and things like that. And that to me is what makes this neat, to bring it back to this retroactive examination is. I also think like one part of that is just how Disney is kind of cheeky. You see it come out in the Marvel movies a lot more, but in this way, like it's well known that there's been so much discussion, so many defenses and attacks of the whole Kessel Run under 12 parsecs thing, right? So in a way, it's almost it's issuing a little bit of social commentary by including it in the thing, because the whole movie wasn't about that, but they included enough of it to be, now once and for all, like maybe they end the discussion and they say, oh, well, we can move on to other inconsistencies or what have you.
So yeah, I mean, you're right, but I like what you said there because we can almost sort of track the age, right? So we start with the age of the wide-eyed acceptors.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They come on the scene and there's science fiction and the movies and things happening in space, and it looks really incredible. And Star Trek moves the line forward as far as what it looks like in space, and they have models. And then Star Wars moves it even further ahead, and you have lightsaber duels and things, and that's really cool. Wide-eyed acceptors. But then after the wide-eyed acceptors comes the age of the nitpickers.
Mm-hmm.
And no one likes the nitpickers, right? Like the age of the nitpickers, the age of the nitpickers lasts a very short time. I think it's a very short time, right? It's wide-eyed acceptance, and then someone says, yeah, but, and then it's like, and then right after the age of the nitpickers comes the age of the retconners.
What does that mean?
And that's where we are now, where we have been informally, many of us, like I can't say all of us, but many people generally in our society, in the zeitgeist of people who partake in these sorts of fiction and the discussions about this sort of fiction, we have been training ourselves in how to properly perform this retroactive reconstruction, reinterpretation of the things to make them make more sense in this way. Mm-hmm. Which is fine as long as we're not then in some ways using the skills that we develop to do that to also do things in the political sphere. Because to me, the act of actively reinterpreting what you imagine happens in Star Wars to explain away bad dialogue in episode 4 is nearly identical to the skill that's used for fans of Trump to explain away the inconsistencies and the things he says to try to make sure that they get to still be fans of Trump, right? Like those two skill sets are so amazingly similar that, you know, it's not that only the people, you know, everyone, you know, it would be remarkable to find out that everyone who was a Trump fan was like really into Star Wars or whatever. Like, I don't think that's true. I don't think it's that everyone who did this went on to be a big time Trumper or something like that.
Right.
But I do think that we're in a disinformation age, in part because of our ability to reinterpret so as to assuage our cognitive dissonance when we are having to face with, you know, you're a fan of Trump and you're faced with the Epstein files and you have to come up with explanations for why it is that this guy seems to be mentioned almost more than Epstein himself, when he's supposed to be the guy that's the one that's the, you know, soldier of light fighting against this. And you're like, oh, he was doing it to infiltrate them or whatever. Like they actually come up with explanations like this to marry these two ideas, to make them latch together. Mm-hmm. And we've been doing this. Many of us have been doing this sort of recreationally. I mean, they're also doing it recreationally, so that's not really fair to say, but more recreationally for things that matter less, for much of our favorite fiction, in order to make it feel more like it was planned all along or something, right? Which, again, the idea that it's planned all along is also an idea that we often assign to people who, you know, politicians who have done very bad things, that they had some plan all along. Like people think of Trump like he had a plan all along. Trump hasn't had a plan all along. This is how this works. Like people look at cult leaders as though they had a plan all along to get to the place where they got to. But that's not really how cults work either. They are just people who are opportunistic, and they're really good at manipulating people to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to them.
And they develop momentum.
Well, when it as it becomes a cult, it develops momentum. Like it mm-hmm. becomes, the things that we call cults generally are the things that have developed momentum. You must imagine in any garden where you have, say, 10 tomato plants, you might have planted 100 seeds, but you only got 10 tomato plants. Same thing is true of like cults. When we see 10 cults that are big enough and organized enough and have enough momentum that we call them cults, there's probably at least 100. There was at least 100 different people who were trying to manipulate people enough and would have made a cult if they had the right opportunity and the right skill set and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But the cards didn't fall their way, or they weren't good enough or whatever, and they failed to make a cult. They weren't consciously trying to make a cult either. They were just incredibly selfish and manipulative people.
But they're also never brought to our awareness the same way prominent cult leaders are, because they're under our notice.
And if they weren't able to manipulate enough to take enough from people that we notice them, that's the thing that, we notice them once they get to a dangerous place. So what people usually do when they look at cults is they look at the cult leaders who, have formed those sort of what might be termed as successful cults, the ones that made it. Yeah. But that's already a filter for all the ones that got that far. Like, there must have been many times, at least 10 times that number that were trying to get there by their manipulative tactics, but they just didn't. And the ones that we see are just the ones who made it there, right? Same is true of a lot of industries where, there's a high attrition rate or whatever, right? Like acting. If you look at whoever makes it to the Academy Awards each year in the crowd, there was easily at least 10 times their number trying to get there, and only that number got there, right? Mm-hmm. And some of those names we'll never know. Like, they tried and gave up before we ever learned their names. You know what I mean? Like, so in these ways, they are just people who had behavior that some of them got dangerous enough that we heard about. But I'm off track. I'm already off track with this cult thing. Cult leaders don't have a master plan to get to where they are. They are moment to moment, just like anyone. They're moment to moment manipulating the people around them, and mostly they just want to feel powerful. And the thing that makes them feel powerful is that. So they're not masterminds. They're not playing, X-dimensional chess or whatever it is. And neither is Trump. He's just essentially the same.
Trumping along. Yeah.
He's just doing his thing. He's just demanding things and doing it in a way that happens to work. And that's pretty much how that's going. That will continue until people stop giving him things he demands. It seems simple. It seems simple. Mm-hmm. It's not once it has momentum, as you say. But let's get back on track. I want to talk about the sorts of things I think about when I think about this sort of what's almost like a side industry of people who come up with this sort of thing. So I just pulled up a bunch of pages here, and we're going to add
Unreality on film, examining where did they come up with this shit. Sorry.
Oh, is this going to work? Okay. Yeah. So this was a page I was served on, I think, my Facebook feed originally. But it's just plot holes from the prequel movies, episodes 1 to 3. And for each of these individual points will have posts, and they'll have Reddit posts, and they'll have endless seemingly endless conversations about how they're not really plot holes, how they're just fine. This is explained away because of something that some other detail that they'll link it up with or whatever. This is just one article. It has 15 things here. how things that don't appear to make sense in the prequel movies. This is the people who make these lists are the nitpickers, as you say, and then the people who comment to explain them away are the retconners. Are you? Is your audio still there, or is it?
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah. So these individually seem. I mean, I don't know. Like I don't usually read these. I don't care enough to read the nitpickers, but here's another one. This is a page.
Every time it says makes Jar Jar look good. Like, what is that?
Yeah. For some reason
that's like the ranking
the bottom of a thing. I don't know why that's there. I think that might be a username, and that's a person that. Yeah. So these are individual lists. I think these are all fan theory. Why is Rogue One actually a horror movie instead of the real thing? I mean, people are reinterpreting Star Wars things, and this is one of the ones that's really interesting. A fan theory on Reddit has people convinced Jar Jar Binks was the greatest Sith Lord of all time. So people are doing this where they're taking this and they're making their own fan fiction from it. They're posting about it on Reddit. They're saying, no, check this out. If you look at it from this angle, it looks entirely different like this. And yeah, we're getting we are training people, building this reinterpretation software inside their brain so that they can do things like this. But that same software also helps them do other things that, when applied to really important stuff like politics and the news and reality, can help them just break reality for themselves. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for some reason, my computer doesn't like this. I'm going to remove that. But what do you think? What do you think of my take on this? That we're building our reinterpretation software, and in some cases, that is lending strength to help our downward slide into unreality.
Well, my position, I think, is that being able to reinterpret our past in the light of new evidence can be really powerful to bring us closer to the truth, but it's always going to come down to what is the quality of that evidence. What is the quality of our examination, right? Like if we have a biased examination, we're trying to use it to paint a certain thing, then are we being really, scientifically receptive to evidence, or are we just, cherry picking, right? Because like some of the reinterpretations that we've had have been, I'd argue, very, very socially useful. If you look at, us re-examining how we came to appropriate the lands of North America, or to be able to re-examine with new evidence the presence of graves in residential schools and whatnot. These have allowed us to get real about some of the things that perhaps we were just kind of not giving the proper look at to come to terms with who we really are and how we really got here. So I would just argue that, like,
sure.
The question just boils down to what is the actual quality of the process, and what is the intent of the person executing that process.
So when we get new evidence and we re-examine it, this is the province, generally speaking, of skeptical inquiry, to not just believe everything, even the things that we previously came to believe were true, being able to set aside the things that you previously believed in order to take on new evidence and examine both the things that you previously believe and the new evidence critically. That's skeptical inquiry in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is important to not just have wide-eyed acceptance for the stories that we were previously told, the things that we previously thought were true, the story that our ancestors told themselves and passed down to us as what they claimed was our history, being able to re-examine that history with new evidence. But in this case, I will point out that this isn't a case of where you're looking at new evidence for things.
Mm-hmm. Wait, you mean in the Solo movie?
The Solo movie, this is a fictional universe, Patrick. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah. This isn't a historical document.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to figure out where you're.
Piece it was fictional.
Yeah.
They didn't discover a new thing.
Yeah, but if you're looking at the Solo movie as being canon, you're treating it as evidence for the fact that the Kessel Run taking place in less than 12 parsecs makes sense in a context that will henceforth should persevere in any further examination of that universe.
Yes. They created with their Deus Ex Machina God machine, they made a new piece of evidence to include among the right. And
that's
so
the
argument over the Kessel Run should be over and final as of the premiere of the Solo movie.
Right.
Which is fine. But that doesn't stop anyone from making a Reddit post that has on that page anyway 94,000 views of Darth Jar Jar Binks being the greatest Sith Lord ever. You know what I mean? There was no new evidence that they used to interpret that. They interpreted that based just on Jar Jar Binks's appearances in the movies that he appeared in already, the previous thing.
Sure.
Which in those movies, by my reading, I don't know what movies you watch, but in the versions I saw, Jar Jar Binks was not a Darth of any sort. He wasn't the Sith Lord. He wasn't...
Spencer, I will say he certainly did not present as one.
Yeah, okay. You're going to keep your mind open to the possibility.
Who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
I don't want to believe it. I'm certainly not... I'm not leaning towards any bias.
It doesn't appear to be the story that was being told because he wasn't even a major character in those movies. He did one thing that facilitated a plot point in one of the three movies, and that was but they didn't add any new evidence. It wasn't like a new movie that included Jar Jar that had him doing some crazy new thing that made him think, you know what? This guy might have been a Sith Lord. This new evidence I saw might add into that.
Doesn't the story arc include him going on to take on an actual government role? Like he becomes an ambassador or something?
He is
like this hapless Gungan that no other Gungan likes.
2 and 3, he is the that's the plot point that he facilitates, is that he is the whatever the title is, Amidala is the queen of Naboo, and she is the representative from the planet. He is the whatever would be vice representative. He would be the second representative. So she's gone and she's not available.
Yeah.
And then her vote is necessary. She's not there. So he's there. He casts the vote, and it's the deciding vote for making Emperor Palpatine a thing. And everyone's like, oh, well, this dummy should never have been put in charge. And yeah, they're probably right. And they should never have had this very important position, even though he's just a stand-in for Amidala. Probably should have had someone who had more with it than Jar Jar.
Anyway, not the sideline, but
whatever. Yeah. That's a thing. And I don't know why, George Lucas just liked Jar Jar, man. He just refused to put him down. Like he could have just not included him in the other movies. It was clear people weren't into it.
So much like dislike. Like the people
Well,
that disliked him because of his mannerisms were so vocal, right? It's
yeah,
like, oh, I'm annoyed by it. Like it was what was wrong with that whole movie, et cetera, et cetera. It was just like,
yeah, they put that down as a lot of the things that made it seem like this movie was for kids
mhm,
instead
yeah.
of for adults.
But it did have a lot of curbside appeal for kids. Kids
Well,
loved that silliness.
that was what that was what extremely rich at the time George Lucas told them, was that I don't give a shit what you think. I did make it for kids. Go
Yeah,
fuck yourselves. Like
yeah,
essentially,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, great. It wasn't serious fiction. It was entertainment mostly for children. I
So
That's what I made it for. Sorry,
can I ask a question? I don't know
sure,
if
yeah.
this is a sideline, but I'm just trying to think like to apply this idea of retroactively examining something in a negative sense. Does this have a parallel with, say, Holocaust deniers?
Yes, sure it does. Yes, there are a host of people who deny the Holocaust.
Mhm.
Many of them do it in order to facilitate their hatred of Jewish people. Some do it just because they are determined that reality itself is wrong, and any answer except reality will do. And I don't have a name for that group of people, how they fit in, but that's the only phrase I can come up with that really describes the collection of their behavior, is that to them, it doesn't matter what the answer is, as long as it's not what, society says is the answer.
Mhm.
It's much more of a
Everything is a lie.
like chaos counterculture information warfare thing. So this is why you'll get things like, 20 different models of a flat earth, and the flat earthers love them all.
Mhm.
And they each one should debunk each of the other ones, but they don't care. Any answer except reality will do. And the same thing is true for a lot of people who engage in anti-vax stuff. I mean, they don't like the, some people do it because they don't really want to take vaccines. Some of them do it because they like the idea that, the medical establishment has been lying to everyone and trying to kill everyone for years. Whatever sense that makes, it doesn't make any sense, but it's a thing that some people will say. But most of the things that they say won't make sense even when just compared with each other. They don't have a cohesive worldview.
Mhm.
Like it's not even something that you're trying to compare to reality and say it doesn't work. It doesn't work, just the set of lies that they tell themselves. But what does explain it is the idea that to them, the only thing that matters is that it's not reality.
Interesting.
You're a big Douglas Adams fan, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. In the third book, we talked about the two modes of travel in Star Trek and Star Wars, so it makes sense that I should talk about a mode of travel that happened in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There's warp drive in Star Trek. There's hyperspace drive in Star Wars, and of course, there's the bistromathic drive in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy universe. It is the fastest form of travel. It's the way in which it works is, of course, just comical and fictional, of course,
Mhm.
but it relies on a specific mathematical principle known as the reciprivers exclusion. Do you remember this?
I don't remember
this?
that term. I do remember Bistromathics.
The
Though.
bistromathic drive.
Yeah.
While you're flying, you have to mimic the actions of being in an Italian bistro, because in an Italian bistro, it turns out, according to Douglas Adams, that every number has a value that can be anything except that which it is defined to be. And once you step into this Italian bistro mode, you can then just make it up as you go along. You can just go any speed, and it can be, you get there in any amount of time, and all the numbers don't matter anymore. And of course, he has this incredibly comedic explanation about the the number of
Figuring out who
people,
pays for what. Yeah.
the number of people who show up is not the same as the number of people that the reservation was made for, and then
Yeah.
it's not the same as the number of people who are there at the end of the meal, and the number of meals on your order is different than the number of meals that you actually ordered, and all the different things, right?
Yeah.
But that was his term. It's a also
Somehow
hilariously
out of
long
that emerges
portmanteau of reciprocal reverse exclusion, and but this is the term I bring up in this aspect, because in his bistromathic drive he was saying it's any value except the real value.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of where some of these people are. Any answer except reality will do. And and they work all kinds of additional reinterpretations of things just to warp it from reality to like this other place.
Mm-hmm. I think, some of that is, well, there's two outcomes, or it's the same outcome, but it's two different paths. Like one outcome is just severely weak reasoning. The other outcome is like some sort of, like there could be mental conditions which cause people to not be able to apprehend or make the relationships between causal factors and effects and things like that. So, or hallucinate or delude, because of just the presence of illness even,
Sure. But in many cases, they know where reality is in order to avoid it.
Yes. I think,
yes.
I mean, it's hard to say if they consciously apprehend it or if their entire, like how their minds work might be just to avoid any notice of it. Like in their mind, they just have hands.
Oh, are we working toward another Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference here?
Someone else's problem. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of, and I think there is an analog in society where people have that. Like we just generally regard it as apathy, right? But apathy has different degrees, and apathy.
Oh, this is definitely not in the category of apathy. They have much more energy than the apathetic about these topics. Yeah. They won't shut up about them.
Well, I mean, I just generally regard like the byline of apathy is that it's somebody else's problem.
Right? Yeah. Right. That is true. But like I say, apathy can't apply because in some cases they seem almost incapable of not talking about it.
No, granted. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, we should probably wrap this up. We've been over an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was this fun for you to just kind of do this examination of how we look at Star Wars in this context, in this way?
Yeah, I had a good time. How about you?
Yeah, it was good. So if anyone has any questions, comments, complaints, concerns about anything they heard on this podcast, you want to get really angry with me about how I won't accept that Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord or whatever, you can send that email to truthunrestricted@gmail.com. I promise to read it. I won't necessarily respond, but I mean, if it's fun, I might. I'm still getting a lot of emails from people who want to convince me to let them on the podcast for something, but they seem like they're really automated emails. It's weird. They say specific things that I say. They're like, I really like a thing that you said, but the rest of the email is like, feels like a form letter. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I should respond to that. That seems like a robot to me. I don't know. But yeah, with that, I think we'll sign off. So thanks for helping me out with this one, Patrick.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Have a good night.
Till next time. Yeah. So we're not really done. We need to tell people what movie we're doing next, Patrick. I think we should do Her. It's as movies go, this would make it probably the newest movie that most recent movie on the list of movies that we've done so far, or might even ever do. I don't know. From 2013, starring Joaquin Phoenix, brother of River Phoenix that was mentioned earlier. And yeah, we can do Her. I think it's a very good movie, and I think it's got good content for an examination for how it relates to this.
Yeah,
and
it's also very contemporary. Like, it's an important movie in terms of the discussions that it gives rise to.
Definitely. Yeah. So with that, we'll sign off again. So
this time for sure.
Till next time.
See ya.